Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Seattle to Unknown. I am Melinda.
And I'm Sarah.
And we're here to rock your socks off with travel information.
Yay! Rock your socks off, huh?
Yeah, I'm trying to make us a little bit more edgier.
You went with rock your socks off?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we got really nerdy the last episode, so you kind of have to, lean into the edginess.
Ah, I see. You can't quite dive right into it. You gotta ramp up to it.
Yeah, exactly. In 4 episodes, we're gonna be the Evel Knievel of travel podcast.
I am concerned by what you consider edgy.
I don't know, it just sounded good.
You went from rock your socks off to Evel Knievel. Are you a soccer mom from 1992?
Wait, when did Evel Knievel not become cool?
It's not that he's not cool, but he's not edgy.
It's just an old reference. I mean, he was back in the day.
It's not exactly biting the heads off of bats.
Yeah, but even Ozzy Osbourne isn't edgy anymore because he's just kind of old and delicate.
Is that the word we're going to use?
And confused. Like he's just confused.
Yeah, well.
Drugs are bad, kids.
Yes. Thank you, soccer mom.
Just say no to drugs.
Oh, don't ya know, those drugs are gonna get ya.
But they grow up so fast.
Oh, but bless their heart.
We love you, Midwestern states. And Minnesota.
I mean, I have no opinion on the Midwestern states. I feel that way about Bobby's World. Oh, Bobby.
You watched way more of that than I ever did.
I actually don't think I watched it that much. I was just so baffled by the accent that it stuck with.
And moving right along.
What's your cocktail?
I have Reed's all natural, 0 sugar, extra ginger ale.
What's extra about it?
It's more gingery.
Ew, why would you want that?
Because I love ginger ale, but Canada Dry is kind of pathetic in the ginger department. I want fucking ginger.
There's the edginess.
Oh, that's good. You know what this would be good for?
Nausea?
A mule. A Moscow mule. Reed's is good just because it's all super gingery.
If you say so.
I do say so. The only lame thing is it comes in glass bottles, and my county doesn't recycle glass, which makes me really sad.
Just have to pack it out.
I just bring it over to my sisters and be like, here you go.
I got a present for you.
All the pasta jars you could ever want. Pasta sauce jars. Not jars of pasta.
That would be weird.
It would be weird. Yeah. What's your cocktail?
My cocktail is a bottle of Bioquella. It's like a Shorla, but more on the water side than on the juice side. And it is organic orange and passion fruit lemonade.
I was going to say, do you have flavored sparkling water, essentially?
It definitely has more juice content than a sparkling water would have. It says it's 6% fruit, whereas sparkling water is just flavored.
It's 2%.
It's 0.2%. But
0.02%.
It's very good, and you can get it in big bottles for super cheap. So this is 3/4 of a liter, and it was 99 cents.
That's not bad.
And it's delicious.
Is it, though?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I'll take your word for it. It looks good. Sounds good. It'd be better if it was apple Shorla.
Nah. Passion fruit is way better than apple.
Germans love their passion fruit, don't they?
Yes, they do.
I feel like we're slow on that uptake over here.
Yeah, a little bit. So, do you have any life updates?
Oh, I do. I have a couple.
Uh-oh.
The other day, I
saw a bear.
Did something good for me. It did not have tennis shoes, though.
Anyway, continue.
I did something good for me. I went and I had a massage, and that was probably, the best life decision I could have done.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Because standing all day and in shoes that are apparently bad for my feet specifically, it's just kind of wrecked my back and shoulders. Mm-hmm. So yeah, no, that was a good life choice. So worth it. Feels so much better. And I got to drink my body weight in water yesterday afterwards.
Okay.
Well, you're supposed to drink a bunch of water to help flush out the toxins that get released from all your bunched up muscle knots. And they asked, how much water do you drink? And I'm like, I typically try to drink 40 ounces. She's like, oh, that's really good. You're probably going to want about double that today. And I'm like, oh man, that was really great. Treat yourself.
Sweet.
It's important. But then I went to the grocery store, and this is when my faith in humanity just gone. It's the end of the world. There's people at the dairy section looking at the milk, and the lady asked if there was any milk that didn't have dairy in it. And the person she was asking didn't know and had to go ask the dairy manager.
All milk is dairy. It's whether or not it has lactose.
Yes. And there's milk alternatives
that aren't.
But they're not really milk. But the fact that neither one of them knew that all milk is dairy, that hurt me so much. And then they had to ask somebody. It's like, oh my gosh. It's like people, when they hear I'm lactose intolerant, they ask me if I can eat eggs. I don't know why that's where their brain goes first thing, but it is.
I actually was about to say something about that. So we were playing this game over Christmas, and we had to list things that were in different categories, and one of them was dairy. And my brother-in-law said eggs.
Okay, in all fairness, he and I both have a grocery background, and eggs are in the dairy department.
Right, but that does not make it dairy.
But it's like refrigeration department. Yes, exactly. It does not. But for some reason, that's where people's brains go every time when you're like, oh, I'm lactose intolerant. They're like, oh, so you can't drink milk or eat eggs? And it's like, no. Eggs come from a chicken. Milk comes from a cow. There's a difference.
Yes. If it doesn't come from a teat, it is not milk.
Hence why, all your nut milks, soy milks, coconut milks, well, that's a nut too, sorta, isn't actually milk. I don't know, that just, oh my god, that, so sad for the world. We're doomed. These were, like, grown-ass adults that were probably older than I am, and they did not know.
Yikes.
Whoa for the future.
Well, it was so funny when we were playing that game because my brother-in-law just kept doubling down on it. No, it's dairy. It's dairy. I don't get why you guys don't get that it's dairy. I'm like, you lose.
He's too much in that grocery mindset. He can't get out of it.
Well, and I know that he knew it's not really dairy, but he was sure going to argue until he won, but he did not win.
Don't quit your J job and become a lawyer.
Oop. Moose just knocked over my drink onto my other drink.
But yeah. Wow. Baby New Year's got a problem. But yeah, that was my yesterday, and it was so good and relaxing, and then my heart broke for the future. What's your update?
My update is I really scared a lady with a baby.
Well, that's not nice.
So I went in for a chiropractic appointment, and Andrew has this new setup. Andrew, who was on the show previously, where there's multiple tables laid out. So when you come in, if it's not your turn yet, you just sprawl out on a table and wait, so you can just kind of relax for a little bit. And there's a lady ahead of me getting adjusted, and she had brought her baby with her. And she laid out a jacket on the floor, put the baby on his back so he could play and just kind of chill out for the whole 10 minutes of the appointment. And the baby started crying, and Andrew goes, "Hey, Sarah, why don't you go over and help?" And I was like, oh, no, he asked me first, "Are you good with babies?" And I said, "Well, I've only dropped one."
Ooh, who did you drop?
Bella.
How bad?
About 3 feet.
How old was she?
About 9 months.
Oh.
But anyway, so I think he thought I was joking. And he goes, "Really, just play with the baby for a minute." So he's distracted. So I get on the floor, and I'm doing the goo goo gaga and tickling and all that usual baby stuff. And he goes, "You can pick him up." I wasn't joking. I have dropped a baby. And you know how you drop one? The first step is picking it up. And the mom is on the table, and she just kind of turns to look at me like, what has Andrew signed my baby up for?
Can you leave my baby on the floor, please?
But yeah, I picked him up and bounced him on my knee for the 2 minutes left in the appointment. But I handed the baby over when the mom was done, and she just kind of looked at me like, "Never touch my child again."
How old would you say this child was?
I'd say, I'm not good at judging babies' ages. 6 months, maybe.
Okay, so teeny still.
Yeah.
Where you have to support the noggin because it's too
Yeah.
heavy. Ooh, yeah, don't drop that one.
Yeah. And I felt so bad because the baby wasn't going to be dropped. It was fine. But I opened with a joke, not realizing he was serious, that he wanted me to go play with the baby. And, yeah, that was awkward. But hey, I didn't drop the baby.
No babies were harmed in yesterday's activities, and that's the important part.
Exactly.
That poor mom, though.
She goes, "It's fine, I think." Yeah, I think so too. Maybe. He wasn't quite at the stage where he was super wriggly, and that was the problem with Bella. I was changing her diaper, and I had to lift her up so that I could pull, like, the diaper out from under her. And as I lifted her into the air, she jerked and wriggled around in a circle. Have you seen the episode of Friends where Phoebe gets the pugs and she picks one of them up and it kind of whips around? That's what Bella did. And in the process of whipping around, I just lost grip of her and boom, right on the ground.
You know, if everything that you're going to drop, the baby is like the thing that you're supposed to save.
Well, she was the only thing in my hand, so it's not like that was the issue. But,
that's when you do like the slippery thing and then you're like, oh, and then you still catch them and save them from death.
Yeah, no, she kathunked. And now every once in a while when Bella does something silly, we go,
Remember that one time?
Yeah. We thought there had been no further ramifications, but clearly.
How's her balance and coordination?
Fine, I assume.
I mean, if she's related to you, she didn't have the best, of those genes. So hopefully you didn't worsen that.
I'm sure it's okay. This'll never stand up in court, though, Bella. There's a statute of limitations on child dropping, and you can't sue me for this later.
Yeah, she's probably exceeded that limitation, too.
Yeah, hopefully.
Ready for some news? Or do you have some more horrific baby dropping stories you want to drop on us?
Nope, that's the only one I've got, because I have not dropped... Look at it this way. I have held 3 babies in my life, and I only dropped 1. So the odds are actually better that I won't drop the baby. It's a 66% success rate.
I would just like to say one day I'll have to tell you about the story how I saved a baby's life. But that's another day.
Okay.
Yep, true story. News for us, maybe?
Yes. So originally I was going to do a story about Airbnb's forecasted travel trends for 2020. And it was things like, people value experiences. People like staying in small places like tiny homes. It wasn't actually all that thrilling. But then I found another story. Go with me, if you will. Imagine you have rented an Airbnb and you show up and everything in the unit looks almost like what it seemed like online, but not quite. So you pull up the original posting and look at the pictures and you realize this is all the right furniture. This is all the right art on the walls. But none of them are in the places they are in the pictures.
Is it like slightly moved to the left or like completely opposite?
Completely different. And then you look and you see the picture of the kitchen. You see, oh, there's 2 counters, but this unit has 1 counter. And then you go out into the hall and there's cleaning staff everywhere, like just coming in and out of almost every unit on your floor. And then you start knocking on doors and you say, hey, I booked an Airbnb here. Are you also in an Airbnb? And you realize everyone on your floor is staying. In fact, there appear to be no actual residents there.
Huh.
And they're all saying the same thing.
Okay.
This isn't what I booked online. Some people asked for 3 beds, they got 2. Some people asked for a bed and a couch, or that's specifically what they booked, and that's not what they got. So you look at the rentals in the area, and you see that every single listing in that area has the same furniture, has the same art on the walls. Every single one has a champagne bottle, the exact same champagne bottle somewhere in one of their photos.
So it's like stock photos for like 25 different listings.
Not stock photos because it is...
Or like same photo for 25
exactly.
listings. Okay.
And so... that is what happened to a writer for Wired. His name is James Temperton, and he was staying in London. And he inadvertently uncovered what is a fully illegal operation, where a man out of Germany somehow bought up all of the units in a single apartment building and was operating them effectively as a hotel, but posing as different people owning the different units. He had rigged up fake profiles to leave reviews for them, fake identities to be the hosts of these units, and essentially was scamming people by not giving them what they had actually booked, because in London there's a rule. It's similar to what the rule is in New York. Essentially, both cities are trying to combat short-term rental abuse, where people are buying units and just constantly renting them out, because generally speaking, people in apartments like to know their neighbors. They don't want their next door neighbor to essentially be a hotel. There's a sort of an aspect of safety there that you want to know who your neighbors are. You don't want constant, like a rotating door of new people coming in and out. In New York, the rule is you cannot rent your unit for more than 30 days, or you cannot do short-term rentals. You can do rentals of greater than 30 days. Well, in London, they took the opposite tactic, that you can rent your unit, but you can't do it for more than 90 days out of it. Because anything over that, you're effectively running a hotel, and you have to be within a zone zoned for hotels or a building
Okay, that
for
seems
that purpose. Fair. Well, so James Temperton essentially uncovered that there is at least one company in London that is putting... It's so complicated. So I highly recommend reading the article, but essentially a local church had a property built on their land that was going to be low-income housing. They turned it over to a management company, and that management company was actually a man based in Germany who was using it as Airbnbs.
Oh.
So it's all very, very convoluted and difficult to track, and it's a very long article, but I suggest reading the whole thing. What this person was doing was that he had 24 units, all furnished exactly the same way. He hired a call center in the Philippines to do their customer service, and they're all instructed to pretend that they are the host listed on Airbnb.
Yikes.
And he had hired, like, bottom of the barrel cleaning services, so these units were filthy. Clogged drains, stained sheets, just generally not super sanitary. And so he had 24 units. He had listed them 28 times on Airbnb under separate accounts.
Wow.
So that way Airbnb...
It's a lot of passwords.
I think he's probably got a password manager. So on Airbnb in London, once you've rented out your property for 90 days, your account is shut down for the rest of the year. No more listing. So then those 28 units would, once they were maxed out, would be relisted under a different account.
So this was happening in London?
Yes, in London. And apparently a very desirable part of the city. And so not only was it on Airbnb 28 times under multiple accounts, it was also on a few different other services like Vrbo and Booking and Expedia. So at no point did any one service realize that he was exceeding the 90-day limit repeatedly, and he could just continually keep them up. And...
Yikes.
If you look at the pages that the listings they made, tons and tons of reviews from a bunch of different people, all using roughly the same wording.
Copy and paste, baby.
And if you check through the history, you can see that the name changed over the years. So for a while, the host's name was Christian, and then for a while, it was Leon, and then for a while, it was Robert. So they keep changing names as they max out their 90 days.
Yikes.
And...
That's terrible.
This is where it gets really weird. So over time, the fake reviews start being filtered through with some real reviews as the rooms go live and can be booked on Airbnb. And one of their bad reviews is from David Schwimmer's wife.
Like legit?
They contacted her while writing this article, and she confirmed it was her.
Now, for those of you who don't know, David Schwimmer was the star, well, one of the stars of the hit TV series Friends.
Yeah, it's a really, really fascinating read as he goes through and uncovers the connection to the Catholic Church and the fact that
It goes all the way to the top!
It goes all the way to the top. So he tracks down...
Is the Pope involved?
The person who owns the shell company that is creating all of these rentals. And it is nuts. It's just nuts. But it's so funny because you can see the trail of people leaving reviews. Like, you'll see, he said, I'll just pick a name at random. Like, Anna left a review for rental number 1, and then rental number 2, and then rental number 3. Like, oh, Anna, why are you staying at all of these rentals? Get yourself a house.
She can't. She's on a budget.
But yeah, I just love that the whole thing that unraveled this was the fact that the guy was just like, I'm going to ask around. So he just goes door to door and sees every single apartment there with the exact same furniture. And it's all like really low end flat pack garbage. One person described it as looking at like an apartment that had been abandoned and then quickly furnished with stuff that fell off the back of a truck or something to that effect.
This was a journalist that figured this all out.
Right?
Yeah, see, that's the problem when you let a journalist book your sketchy Airbnb deals. They're going to investigate. It's literally what they do for a living.
Yeah, it's a really interesting read. They keep using these fake reviews, and then which means that whenever someone leaves an honest 1, 0, however many star review, they can discredit them. They'll reply, well, you were doing X, Y, and Z, and you were terrible guests, and just look at all the wonderful reviews we have.
Yikes. Doesn't that, like, affect your ability to get other bookings through them if you're a terrible guest?
Exactly, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so the journalist ends up taking it to the city council planning board, and suddenly their complaint just gets dismissed. Like, well, everyone in the units has a long-term lease, therefore it's valid. There's no way you went to these apartment buildings full of people doing short-term rentals and you managed to determine that all 24 units have long-term leases in them, because they don't. But yeah, it was...
Yikes.
It's really full of twists and turns, and everyone along the way who's involved with this building somehow, the property owner, the church that had it built, none of them knew it was being used as Airbnbs. Somehow they were all fooled, or at least pretending to be fooled. But essentially the outcome was the writer eventually took this to Airbnb and said, look at this scam I've uncovered. These people aren't planning to actually maintain these units that well. They're not available if you need help because the people you're contacting are actually in a call center in the Philippines. And Airbnb, you might have actually received an email from them recently. It was in the news, and I think they sent out a mass email saying, hey, we're aware that there's some problems, and so our goal for 2020 is to vet all of our units and all of our hosts. And these listings were all taken down afterward.
So you can't even go, hey, Airbnb, this is a scam. It's like, oh no, hey, these are not being maintained properly. And that's what caught their attention?
Well, technically, no user was actually being scammed in the sense that they were renting a place, they showed up, and they had a place to sleep. Just nobody was getting exactly what they wanted because they were just slotting people in.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's...
Yikes.
It's an interesting one. It makes me that much more uncomfortable with the concept of Airbnb.
Which it started out being such a great tool, and now it's become a little bit sketchier. It's kind of like Uber or any rideshare things. Like, it started out really well. It was the best thing ever. And then people started taking advantage of the programs. And now you have to be really cautious and leery, and we're back to square one.
I've used Airbnb 3 times now, and each 3 times it was a wonderful experience. But there's that much more hesitation each time because there's always some new story.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
do your research.
Yeah, and do not trust the reviews, especially if you're seeing things that are getting a little repetitive in the review, because it really could just be one guy behind his keyboard with 300 accounts interacting with himself.
So many passwords. That's my concern, really.
So yeah, but definitely go back and read the article because my summary is just a very rough summary, and there are so many turns in this thing. I was like, I thought I got what was going on, and suddenly David Schwimmer shows up.
As he does sometimes in London.
Yeah. Well, did you hear the story about a guy, I think he was robbing some convenience store, and he was taking out a large number of beer bottles, and he looked up in the security camera, and he looked just like David Schwimmer?
No.
Yeah, and then a few days later, David Schwimmer went and recreated the image. It was pretty funny.
Oh, gosh. Good sense of humor, though.
I would hope so. If you're on Friends for however long he was, and you come out the other side with a terrible sense of humor, you've done something wrong.
Anyways, this week's topic is traveling with pets.
aka probably one of the most challenging travel experiences a person can have.
My travel with pets has been brief. It involves car rides and moving. Or, we adopted the cat in this city and now we have to drive you home. And everything's really new, so you're just gonna cry the whole way. But don't worry, we're gonna be best friends later.
And my travel experience with pets involves 2 West Coast road trips from Seattle to LA. Well, one from Seattle to LA and one from LA to Seattle. And 1 transatlantic flight with a cat and 2 transatlantic flights with a dog. None of which were fun. Okay, the cat one was kind of fun because the person sitting next to me accidentally spilled Bailey's on her. And the cat lapped it up, and she was having a hell of a time after that.
It's sleepy time now.
What? I'm where?
Night-night.
Yeah, so I have traveled more than my fair share with cats and dogs and birds. Basically all the big 3.
The fuck? Birds are a big 3?
What do you think is in the 3?
Mini horses. They go on planes.
Okay.
Duh.
Birds are in the top 4.
I'm not, a pet bird fan. I'm sorry. It's just not my thing. They're obnoxious.
I am not necessarily a big pet bird fan either. I'm a fan of the bird I have, but I will not get another bird again. So, if you find yourself in a position where you may want or need to travel with an animal long distance, first ask yourself whether or not you actually need to do it, because it's more manageable by car, but it is challenging by air because there's no pulling over for a rest when you're in an airplane. There's no roadside pit stop so your cat or dog or whatever can pee. They're just gonna pee where they are. And people don't like the smell of pee on airplanes, funny enough.
Especially not cat pee. That stuff's awful.
So
it's I don't know. You would think that it wouldn't be so vile.
But it is.
It is. It stinks, yo.
If you're doing something temporary, like going on a vacation, and assuming your pet is a pet, not a service animal or a therapy animal or a support animal of some sort.
A working animal.
Yeah, really think about whether this is necessary. Because it is stressful for everyone involved. Your pet will be stressed, you will be stressed because they're stressed. And if you can save yourself that stress, do it.
It's not a happy time for anybody, really.
No. It's unpleasant, and I wouldn't recommend doing it if you don't have to. Moose agrees. He's been forced to travel. He didn't enjoy it much. He can vouch for it.
I believe it, for sure.
Yes. And then if you decide... Shush. If you decide that, yes, you must do it, maybe you're relocating and where you go, your pets go, then determine what kind of legwork you need to do up front before you book anything. Because if you're traveling domestically, it's much easier. But if you're traveling internationally, you must follow the rules to the T. They will say, we need X, Y, and Z, and you must give them exactly X, Y, and Z.
Remember that one time Johnny Depp went to Australia with his dogs and didn't, declare them or whatever, and they had to get quarantined?
Well, that's
because the proper measurements weren't taking place.
Yeah, and to travel with pets to Australia, your pet must be quarantined. I think the only exception is, if you're coming from New Zealand, because they have similar biodiversity issues.
Yeah, which is fair, but, you need to get your ducks in a row because certain places are going to require certain things, and some might be more than others.
Mm-hmm. And, for instance, I know when I was bringing my cat into the EU, the paperwork said, if you do not have X, Y, and Z, we reserve the right to put your animal down upon arrival.
Oh! Not even, return ticket home that you must purchase. It's bye-bye.
It's sort of a case-by-case basis. It's just, we might not go that far. We might bring a vet in to come and test your animal, but if that resource is not available to us, we can do what we want.
Oh.
which is why it is very, very important that you have everything they need.
Damn.
Yeah. And that's why bringing her into the EU was so frightening, because it was the first time for me I had ever taken a pet across any borders. And like, I kept asking the vet, like, no, really, tell me that I have everything again. Can you check it again? Make sure I have every single thing they're asking for. And it's not even just that you have to have exactly what they're asking for. You have to have it within the time frame they're requesting. So I know we needed a rabies shot that was more than 30 days old and a blood test that was less than 3 days away from the flight.
Damn. I mean, I get it. They're going to want to make sure everything's current and up to date.
Mm-hmm. Which is where we get to the next point. Consult your vet and make sure that they check all the boxes for you on top of you doing your own checks, and make sure that you have records that show all of their vaccinations are up to date. Another thing you need to do is determine if your pet can fly in the cabin or go in cargo. If you have a cat that's a little bit on the heavier side, they might ask you to put them in cargo. So make sure you know what your cat weighs and make sure that it's under the limits. Same for dogs, but I think of cats because I flew with my cat in the cabin.
What are cat weight limits?
I think the total is your bag and your cat can weigh no more than 12 pounds, and that'll vary from airline to airline. But Birdie had to go on a little bit of a diet to make sure she scraped in under that limit.
Ooh, my cat's a big boy. He can't fly.
And so if your pet can go in the cabin, that should be your option number one. But most pets are probably over a 12-pound weight limit, so just be prepared for the fact that they will likely need to go in cargo. Once you know if they're cargo or cabin bound, make sure you get a carrier or a crate that is compliant. It has to be soft-sided to be inside the cabin and hard-sided to go in cargo. And like, they all have different rules.
Makes sense.
So like, your crate probably needs metal fasteners for the corners or zip ties. It needs to have proper ventilation. It needs to be plastic most of the time. No shipping your dogs in wooden crates, apparently. Because this is not Indiana Jones.
Wooden crates don't have, like,
no, they do
proper
not.
ventilation.
But just make sure it ticks all of the boxes. Just because a carrier says airline approved doesn't really mean anything. Because what airline? Every airline has different rules.
Make sure you research before you spend that money, because carriers aren't typically cheap regardless of where you're going with them.
No, they are not. And I think one of the worst things that kept popping through my mind was that I'm going to show up at the airport, have my cat or my dog in their carrier, and they're going to say that's not compliant. And then what do I do? Where's the nearest pet store? Where do I get a new crate in the time it takes me between now and boarding? Like, line it up beforehand. At one point, I even took a picture of the crate my dog was going to fly in, and I sent it to the airline on Twitter and said, is this okay?
I was going to say call or try and email them.
Yeah, I wanted confirmation, so if at the airport they said, no, this doesn't work, why it wouldn't work, I have no idea. But I could send them a picture, like a screen cap, and be like, look, see, here's where you said this was okay.
You told me it was fine. And then start crying hysterically until they say, yeah, okay, fine, okay. That should not be your first plan, though.
No, and some airports will sell you crates at the airport because they know, like, people don't realize what they're buying. They get there and it gets rejected. But those crates are easily 200-300% more expensive.
They should have, like, a rental program.
Well, they should have a lot of things at the airport.
That, like, emergency, like, crate rental. So then everybody wins.
The one time I looked into buying a crate for Moose at the airport because I wasn't sure how to get him a suitcase, his crate, my backpack, like all of my stuff to the airport on a train. They quoted me 350 euros for a crate.
Ha! No!
Yeah.
Sweet
so,
jeez.
Yeah, do the legwork, figure out that you've got a good crate, and hopefully all will go well, because that's kind of the risk with traveling with pets. Somebody along the way can say, no, I don't like that crate. You can't use that. Generally, it probably doesn't happen all that often, but as with anything, airlines reserve the right to be a jerk.
It's in the fine print.
Yep. So once you have your carrier, make sure that they're used to it. It would be no fun to throw a dog in a crate the day of a flight and just hope that they're okay with it. Like, hey, buddy, get into this box and we're gonna ship you off. Enjoy. Please stay calm. So once they're used to it and making sure that you're staying true to the schedule of when you need to get things done, schedule tests, organize your documents and double check that everything is checked off. And this is a really important one. On the day of your flight, do not sedate your pets. In the past, it was really common to just kind of give them something to make them sleepy, but airlines don't let you do that anymore.
No more Benadryl coladas for you. But it makes sense
No.
because it becomes a big safety thing of like, oh my god, did we kill your dog? Or is it just passed out on Benadryl?
And apparently, the medicines that one would typically use to sedate an animal thins their blood.
Oh.
And it makes it dangerous for them at high altitudes. Like, humans take something to thin your blood while you're flying for good reasons. When you do it to an animal, it's not great for their heart. So they do not let you sedate your pets. And in fact, many airlines during the check-in process will ask you to take your pet out, and they will like do small interactions like, hey buddy, like, look over here.
Is this cat scared shitless of everything and wants to murder me? Yep, it's good.
And they will check that the animal is responsive. And if your animal is not responsive, it is not safe to fly.
That makes sense. Well, and I'm glad they have that just to help them out, make sure that they survive being scared shitless for a long time.
Exactly. What you can do is give them an anti-anxiety medication. That is still safe. You just cannot make them sleep. So, for instance, when I was taking Birdie to Germany, my cat, I know that's confusing. When I was bringing my cat to Germany, I gave her kitty Xanax, which is just little Xanax pills.
Xanax.
Actually, so the vet prescribed it, but she said, I'm giving you 12 pills. I want you to immediately go home and test it. Put her in a closed space like a bathroom, give her one pill, and wait. And thank God I did, because Birdie is the 1 in a million animal that when given Xanax actually becomes hyper aggressive.
I think it just heightens her hyper-aggressive. Really, I mean, she's really a sweet cat, but like, if she doesn't like you, you'll know.
Yeah, well, Birdie tried to claw my face off. So
I don't blame you. I mean, remember, was it the leash? Yeah, that was Birdie and the leash.
So basically, I learned really quickly that Xanax is not for her, and she was just going to have to go it without anything, which ultimately turned out fine because she discovered Bailey's. But any medication should be tested before you get on the plane, because if I had given it to her before the flight, we might have been in some trouble.
You would have gotten kicked off.
They'd be like, we are landing now in Denver. We didn't make it very far. But
you can blame lady in row 18, seat G, and her damn cat.
So, for the flight, make sure that if your pet is in cargo, they have access to food and water. So, like, crate attached dishes. Legally, you must provide those things. They will not let your pet into cargo if you do not put food or water in their dish.
How does that stay into the little dish cups?
They load them very carefully.
The one thing they load in cargo carefully is animals. Okay, that's good.
Thank God.
I wouldn't want to see them chucking a crate. I would be very concerned.
Yep, and if your flight is over a certain number of hours long, they ask that you attach extra food to the crate. So that way, if there's a layover or there's a delay or something, someone will come in to cargo on the tarmac and dump food into their bowl.
Oh, okay.
If you're traveling in the cabin with an animal, I highly suggest that you cut off their water. Like, not cut it off, but limit it, because you do not want them to pee on a plane.
I'm gonna guess most times the animals are not that comfortable enough with their surroundings and whatnot to want to eat too much or drink water too much.
Birdie was fine, and generally she's not a cat who wants to pee anywhere but her litter box. Like, she's loath to pee anywhere else, but she still needed some water. It was a 10-hour flight.
Yeah, they're probably not gonna need a whole lot anyways, but it's good to have it on hand just in case they are the one that's like, yeah, this is fine, whatever, feed me.
Yeah, generally what I did is when you get the little airline cups of water, I'd drink it down to like the last quarter, and then I'd put that in her carrier and let her drink the rest, which ultimately turned out to be a bad idea because we had 2 flights, and even though I set up a litter box for her in the Frankfurt airport bathroom so she could pee, she would not pee. Waited till we were on our 2nd flight, pushed her butt up against the mesh of the carrier, and peed onto the floor of the airplane.
And it never came out.
No, probably not. Another thing is, this is really important if you're flying with a pet in cargo. And I know when I first heard it, I thought it was kind of silly, but I did it anyway. And it turned out it was a very good idea. If you're flying with a pet in cargo, as you board, flag down a flight attendant and say, "Hi, I'm sitting in this seat. My pet is flying in cargo. Could you please confirm he is loaded?" And alert the pilot to the fact my pet is in cargo. Because pilots may or may not know that there's a pet in cargo. It's good to let them know, because if there are no animals in cargo, the cargo hold is not climate controlled.
Oh, I was going to ask, why is it important for the pilot to be aware? Okay, climate control.
So exactly, the pilot is the one who flips the switch that climate controls the cargo area, because otherwise they save energy by not doing that.
Which, because you're so high up in the air, it gets ridiculously cold.
Exactly.
And they could potentially freeze to death, like, legitimately.
And it has been known to happen. Oh, that's one of the things I didn't list here is research the airline. Make sure that they have a good track record with animals.
Especially in cargo.
Yep.
They don't get flight attendants down there.
No, they do not.
Do they get lights, or are they just in the dark? They're probably just in the dark still.
I think they're in the dark, which is probably for the best.
Yeah.
And I talked to a friend of mine who is a pilot, and I asked him, "Is this silly?" And he goes, "No, we don't care. Like, it's not, if we've already flipped on the climate control, we're not going to be offended if you ask us to double check. In fact, we'd rather you double check with us so that we don't make a mistake that is going to kill an animal. Like, we don't want to be responsible for that. So yeah, remind us."
Especially if it's probably not a super regular thing. I'm going to guess it happens often, but it's not every flight, every time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think it's more regular than we realize, but still,
it's not going to be every flight necessarily that they're doing.
Yeah, so just have them double check. You can even say, "I would like confirmation before we take off."
Aye, aye, Captain. Makes total sense to alert them and ask for confirmation too. This is your animal. It's your fur child. It's your
family,
light and joy. Yeah, so why not take the same precautions as you would for a child as you would an animal that you're flying with? Makes sense.
Yeah, especially flying with a child in cargo.
And if you have really cute pictures of your pet, maybe the pilot will invite them up to the cockpit with them. I'm kidding, probably not, but
probably not.
It'd be cool.
Yeah, and in fact, the first time I flew with Moose, which was not his first flight, just my first flight with him, I asked the person in the window seat if I could swap with them just until cargo was done loading, because I wanted to see him get on board. And she was like, "Yeah."
Did you, like, wave when you saw his crate? There he is! That's my baby!
Yeah, and actually the flight attendant who I'd already talked to came over, and I was in the very last row of seats, and she sort of perched over my shoulder and looked out the window. And I was like, that's him! And she goes, "Oh, he looks cute." Like, I mean, you can't see inside of his crate, lady, but okay. Yes,
but, like,
he is cute.
Gold star for, like, the amount of support she was trying to give you. Right on.
If you are a person who are prone to getting a little anxious, they make Xanax for people, too, I hear. Because
not just for kitties.
The first flight with him, he was fine. Complete champ. He popped out the other side like, what? Am I someplace new? Where is this? Where am I? But not at all anxious. It was like no big deal for him. Whereas I got off the flight shaking. Where is he? Bring him here now. And then I felt like an idiot when he was like, what? Huh? What's going on?
What's up? Fancy meeting you here. Where are we going? Where are we at? Let's go. But I think that's also just personalities for both of you. He's the doofus that's just really excited for the fancy car ride he just had, and you're the ball of nerves.
Yep. People, this is going to sound a little selfish, but when people talk about why you shouldn't travel with pets, they always say it's because it's such a huge stress on the animal. And yes, it is absolutely stressful for animals to do something weird and that involves shaking and their ears popping. That's definitely a stress.
Babies don't even get why their ears are popping. Stupid babies. I'm just kidding.
It's so hard as the person responsible for the animal. You know, I am that could potentially be dangerous. I am doing something in my case that was elective. He didn't need to come home for Christmas. Birdie, it was a different story. She had to move with me. There were no other options. But
your parents didn't want to take her back?
She's not good with other cats. And they have a cat.
Oh, I didn't know if they had a cat then. Okay, yeah.
There was nobody in our family who didn't already have a cat. So there was no option to leave her with someone. And I wasn't going to put her up for adoption. I wasn't going to, give her back to a shelter. She was coming with me. We're partners in crime whether she likes it or not.
She's old and cranky and set in her ways.
Yeah. She was 12 when we moved here. She's not 12 anymore.
Yeah. No, she's old. She's an old lady now.
Do what you need to do to take care of your stress levels on a flight. Because honestly, the first 2 hours, I sat there and every time there's a bump, I wanted to cry. I was like, he's getting banged around down there. This is all my fault. He wasn't getting banged around. He was fine. But I swear, every once in a while I'd hear something to be like, is that a dog barking? No, dummy, you won't be able to hear him over the engines. But I was convinced.
It's really just somebody snoring 2 rows over.
It's a baby somewhere. A baby that I did not drop. It'll never hold up in court. So yeah, land, go and retrieve your pet, clean them up because they may have done their business in their cage, and then go through customs. So make sure you've got all of your paperwork in a place that's easily accessible because they might want to look it over. And then if you are staying someplace long term, make sure you know the local laws about registering your pets because you might need to, and if you don't, you could get into trouble.
Big trouble.
So those are
for you and the pet.
Yeah. A lot of places are not messing around. Oh, one more thing to add to this. If you are taking your pet somewhere, particularly dogs, make sure they are not a restricted breed before you do so. Because lots of countries have breed bans, particularly for pit bull varieties, for mastiffs, for Dobermans, sometimes German shepherds, anything that someone might think was violent. And yes, I know that a breed does not inherit.
So Chihuahuas?
Chihuahuas are fine. If it's small enough, you can kick it away, you're probably fine.
Those things will get ya.
I know, for instance, in Germany, you need a special license to have any of those types of dogs, and if you don't have it, they can take your pet away. So get those licenses and register. Do everything by the proper channel because it's important for your pet. If you want your pet to stay with you, you got to do it right. That's the broad strokes of what you need to travel with your pet. And again, it's different for working animals. Some countries will acknowledge working animals, some won't. So that's a whole other can of worms.
Different strokes for different strokes for different folks, you might say?
I suppose.
No? Okay, fine then. Short little things you might want to pack to make things easier. Collapsible food and water dishes are always good. That's good for road trips or flight. Collapsible litter box, and then a Nalgene of cat litter for, your dogs and everything, because they love peeing in litter.
My dog loves going through litter.
Just kidding, it's for cats. I mean, you could probably put it in a Ziploc bag if you really don't want to dedicate a Nalgene bottle to your cat's litter.
You're just going to need a lot of it.
Just something that'll contain it and be sturdy, depending. Yeah. A good thing always, I mean, even if you're just moving your cat, is having a blanket that smells like you, smells like their normal environment, just to help keep them comfortable and a little bit calmer, because there's something familiar. Which we tried doing this when we were going to move my cat in, and Mike already had a cat. I brought a toy over that was one of his favorites and would always play with, so it smelled like him. But Mike threw it at her, so she hated that toy. Like, she would hiss and growl at it and hide underneath the bed. But it turned out she liked Jerry better than the toy.
Oh, good.
She's fine with the toy now, too. But the fact that she was just bombarded by this lobster toy, yeah, not a good choice. Don't throw the blanket at your cat. Just, let them chill with the blanket. More things that are good for when you're trying to pack, especially if you're flying with them, would be zip ties. So, those crate doors stay shut. Isn't that a requirement for most of them, is that they're actually secured with the zip tie or something?
Yeah, exactly. And they're supposed to be able to provide them to you, but not every counter will have them, and then you're running around trying to find them. It's better to just have a handful of zip ties handy.
And you know what else is handy to get those zip ties off? Nail clippers. Because you can fly with them, as long as I think they're the small ones and not the big monster clippers.
You can bring the big monster clippers.
Can you? Okay.
Yeah, you can bring
depending on the thickness.
You can have almost any clipper so long as it doesn't have the swivel out nail file.
Oh, okay. So if you do have that nail file, maybe you just have to pry it off.
Yep.
Worst case. It's also good to bring a spare towel just so you can have a nice little tidy up moment if they were forced to relieve themselves in their crates. Because, nobody likes paper towels wiped on them.
No.
Nobody wants that. That's like worst case scenario of, oh my god, what have you done? The towel's not enough. But that shouldn't be your first choice. And maybe a spare leash, just in case. Why do you need a spare leash, Sarah?
So when you're traveling with a pet in cargo, if there's a layover, they may take your pet out to relieve themselves on the tarmac. And you're supposed to have your leash and collar with you. But if they're going to let them out on the tarmac, they need a leash too. So,
okay, that makes sense.
So the crate that I have for Moose has 2 storage containers on the top, one in the front, one in the back. And so I put food in one and then a leash and a collar in the other, just in case. Because nobody
that makes sense.
Expects their dog to get out, but in the event it does, the people chasing after them also need to be able to leash and harness them.
That makes sense. Hopefully all of this makes sense and helps relieve some of your fear and anxiety if you are having to travel with a pet, especially by flight. That sounds terrible. Car rides are already sad when they just cry the whole time.
Yeah. One of the worst car rides I've ever taken was when I moved to Los Angeles. And at the time, I had 2 cats and 2 parrots. And that was basically the whole back seat of the car was cat crate, bird crate, cat crate, bird crate. And you know who don't like being next to each other? Cats and birds.
Cats and birds. That sounds like an eventful car ride. A noisy car ride.
It was very loud. Anytime you hit a bump, the birds would go nuts and then the cats would cry. Like, ugh, guys, please just be quiet for a little bit. This is going to be a long 1,200 miles.
And I feel like cats don't necessarily calm down easily in car rides unless they've gotten used to it when they're little. For the most part, most of them are not into it.
Well, Stinker wasn't a good car cat. Birdie, on the other hand, was only bad because Stinker would wind her up. Like, the sound of the other cat freaking out scared her. But on the road trip back from Los Angeles to Seattle, 6 years later when I was moving out of my apartment, Birdie just soaked it up. That cat was in heaven. She either sat curled up at my feet or on my lap or just chilling on the console in the middle. At no point did we have to put her in a crate because she was just zoned out. It was like, oh, the vibrations from the car must have chilled her out because she was in heaven.
How funny.
Yeah, she was just kind of, she'd get up, look around, and then pass back out. But it helps that she was also 6 years older.
Yeah. She's more mellow. I feel like my cat would like car rides better if you could see out the window. But
because your cat's
then
a dog?
he's not secure. No, he just likes, he's interested in outside. Like if you crack open a window, he hears it and comes running and like has to get in the window and sniff the air.
Yeah.
He's interested in the outside world.
Yeah, Birdie was completely miserable in her crate until I was just like, screw it. I'm just going to get her out and pet her. And she just zonked out like nothing was going on.
What a strange kitty.
Oh, the one thing that fascinated her, though, was drive-thrus. Because we were trying to make good time. And so we'd just go through drive-thrus like twice a day. And we'd get up to the window and she'd just perk up and look at the person in the window like, you are a magical being who passes food into our car.
And they're probably like, is that a cat? What the fuck? Day is made. Can I pet your cat?
Oh, she was so fascinated by it. But anyway, those are the broad strokes of what to do if you're traveling. Just the key to this, as with all things, is to do your research and make sure you follow the rules.
Especially when flying and internationally.
Yeah. So, I guess that brings us
Tip
to our
of
tip
the
of the
week.
week. What you got?
This week's tip is brought to you by Sarah being an overachiever again and just, deciding she talks about everything. So I'm going to use it. Apparently it's not unheard of for dogs to be let out of their crates during layovers. And maybe they don't go back into the crate where they once started in. And then they go on an adventure without you. So, if you want your dog to go where you're going, you can use the multitude of websites that let you customize pretty much anything with a photo. So, you can have luggage tags. You could probably have, like, I don't know, a coffee mug attached to their crate with their face on it. Just, put a picture so they know what dog goes into what crate if they are let out for a little potty break during a layover. Just so you don't get Mrs. Jones's tiny Shih Tzu when you had a giant Mastiff. Which the crate size would be very interesting and be like, how did you...
I mean, you could get the Shih Tzu, but who got the Mastiff?
Maybe a bad example. Yeah. But yeah, use those customization websites to make tags with a photo of your pet so they match it up to the right thing. And if they still get it wrong, then they've got a lot of splaining to do. It's like, there's literally a picture. How did you mess this up?
It was one of the things I did when I took Moose home for Christmas that one year, is I was terrified. My mom told me, well, did you hear that story about the two dogs that got swapped and one of them got shipped off to Bermuda or I don't know where. And to
the Triangle?
Yes, the Triangle. And they never saw it again. I printed out just a picture of Moose and hung it from the front of the crate. And while I was home, I had one made on like a actual hard plastic luggage tag made on Zazzle or Snapfish or whatever, some site like that. So it was durable.
Oh my gosh.
What?
I just had a brilliant idea. What if you got like the mesh, well, it's not mesh, but the stretchy suitcase cover where you can get it customized to be like somebody's face and just had a photo of your dog to pull over the crate? Because it'd still be breathable.
I think that ruins the ventilation a little bit.
It'd be kind of funny. I mean, maybe a little, but it would have been funny. Yeah, or even if it's a cabin critter, you could still put a tag on it so then, people won't be wondering what you're smuggling or what's making that noise. They'll literally see, oh, it's a cat or it's a small dog. Good conversation starter.
Oh, I just had one more tip to throw in. I'm sorry, I just have a lot of thoughts about pets. If you are traveling with a pet going through...
You have a lot of feelings.
If you're traveling with a pet in the cabin with you, you may wonder what do you do during the security check, because you're pet may be in a carrier, and it may be a cat, and how do you deal with that? What you do is, as you go up to the scanners, you show them your pet carrier, and someone will take the carrier to the other side beyond the detector, let you walk through, and then they will take you to a private room for a screening where they will close you into a room so the cat cannot escape. So I know a lot of people think I just have to carry my pet through the scanner. No, go to a private room, get a special screening there, so that way your cat can't run free and live in the airport forever.
What if that was the cat's whole life goal?
It's like, I'm free, bitches!
Yeah. Yeah. Should have talked to my mom about this. She travels with her dog all the time.
Well,
that dog has probably flown more than I have.
Well,
I don't know. It could be pretty close.
My dog has been to more countries than most people.
That's true.
It's a little frightening, actually.
He was not born in Germany.
Nope. He's been to Greece, the Netherlands, Germany, the US, and a tiny bit of Belgium.
He's a well-traveled dog.
Yep. So I think that wraps up this episode. Hopefully that was useful and stress subduing. 'Cause I know I was super stressed out the first time I had to travel with an animal. It's a challenging thing to wrap your head around.
It's a challenging thing to do in general, especially if you're flying by yourself and you're trying to haul an animal. Whether it's a big or small one, it's still extra cargo.
Yeah. So it is possible. I can confirm I have done it. And if you know that this is something you need to do, you're relocating for a long term, don't let people try to make you feel bad about it, because people tried to make me feel bad about it both times I had to do it. And you know what? You got to do what you got to do. You made a commitment to an animal. They are part of your family, and where you go, they go. So,
they are not disposable.
Exactly. So it's tough, but you can make it work. It is entirely possible, and way, way more animals travel per year than you would think. So don't let horror stories about accidents make you feel bad or stress you out, because for every accident, there's 1,000 animals traveling successfully.
Yep. And it's not even just plane travels. If you're having to relocate and you can drive there, you know, you got to do the right thing for the animal and take the right steps to make sure that their travel will be as comfortable as yours. And it's okay for them to move with you. Sometimes they have to learn about stairs later in life.
Explain?
Allie has only lived in, like, single floor places, like, most of her life. So when we moved to where we are, we had stairs. So it's the funniest thing to watch her, like, bunny hop up and down them. She doesn't, like, it's not as smooth as a cat that's known stairs most of her life. It's funny. It's cute, though.
On a bigger scale, if you watch Jenna Marble's videos, you know that last year she adopted a greyhound. It was not a retired racing dog. It was a blood donor dog, because greyhounds are universal donors. So it spent the first 3 years of her life donating blood. And they brought her to their house, and they have stairs. So you know how hard it was to teach Allie to use the stairs? Now imagine a greyhound.
Oh, she figured it out. We didn't have to teach her. Greyhounds, we've had them before, which were ex-racers, and they're mostly legs, and they can't do open back stairs.
Yeah, well,
like, that's definitely not a forte for them.
She posted some videos around the time they first adopted Bunny, and watching her and her boyfriend try to get a greyhound up the stairs was very entertaining.
Yes. They're not the most confident with stairs.
But she's a very cute dog, so, you know.
Well, greyhounds are just cute dogs in general. They're like giant kitties. They're great. They're great dogs.
Yeah. Well, I think that wraps up this episode. Go forth and travel with your pets as necessary and with confidence.
Maybe teach them about stairs. And just remember, it's an adventure.
So bring your furry buddy with you on your adventures.
They might like it. Or try
They
to
might
murder
not.
you in your sleep. Yeah. Exactly.
But, you know, it's
all
not...
good.
It's doable. That's the key takeaway.
And you'll get a fun story out of your newest adventure.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, join us next week for more travel-related goodness of sock rocking.
Man, I thought we were building up to edginess, but that was not it.
Yeah, join us next week where we talk about how to jump a canyon on a motorcycle with your pet.
While biting the head off of a bat.
Why do you keep going back to the Aussie reference?
Because it's edgy. God.
But I'm
My
talking
references
about
are also
Evel
from
Knievel.
1992.
Join us next week where we teach Sarah about, 1993.
Yes! I've been waiting for that volume in the box set. It's finally here.
Oh boy. It's time to go.
Yes, it is.
Okay, bye!
Bye!
Hey everyone, thanks again for listening to another episode of Seattle to Unknown. Don't forget to tell your friends about us and subscribe so you never miss a thing. You can also find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest under Sea2 Unknown. That's SEATO Unknown. Or you can check us out on our website, www.sea2unknown.com. Want to know what we do on our off time? You can find both Sarah and I on Twitter and Instagram. Sarah is at SAR_S, and I'm at Hooligan Monster on both. We would also love to hear from you. Send us an email with your stories and travel tips to sea2unknown@gmail.com. Until then, it's an adventure. Bye! That ginger ale just runs right through ya.
Good to know.
Take that out.